Hi everybody, my name is Haydee Lee Scott. I am the founder of an organization entitled Love Thyself First, where we encourage women to love themselves, to step out in faith, and to truly live in purpose. I want to welcome you to today's talk, Queendom Talk. We are discussing domestic violence, mental wellness, and healthy relationships. And the reason why I wanted to wrap all these things in one is because this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I rarely hear about, when hearing about domestic violence, I really hear about healthy relationships and the connection with the two, healthy relationships and domestic violence, and the fact that your mind has to be well. Your mind has to be well. When you're talking about relationships, when you're talking about unhealthy relationships, which kind of falls into the domestic violence category, right? So I attend a lot of these events. I just want to hear more about mental wellness, mental health, and the realization that individuals are not really paying attention to that. We're not really paying attention to what we're thinking about, how we're thinking about, how we learned about relationships, how are we dealing with the most important relationship, which is yourself. So there's just a lot of those things that I would like to unpack a little bit. So that's why I wanted to chat today. To kind of, definitely come from an empowerment standpoint and not just come from a story, right? I mean, everyone's story is important, everyone's experience is important. I don't want to take away from those things. However, I think we need to start talking solutions, which is, in my opinion, bringing more awareness to what a healthy relationship looks like, especially in urban communities. In addition to helping people to understand that your happiness lies with you. Your decisions that you make, all of these things lie within yourself. And there is a responsibility that you do have in terms of your mental health. It's just like your physical health, right? It's just mentally. If you were to break a bone, you will go to the doctor. If you are suffering from something mentally, we're not always aware that, there are doctors out there for that. Instead, we have this huge stigma, attached to the fact that you can actually go to a doctor to help give you medication if needed, or you can learn some strategies, right? I always like to share that a lot of these topics are they're important to me because I have experienced all three. Let's just say that. I have been diagnosed with depression when I was 16. I went to a therapist. I did the whole deal, the whole therapy thing. And what I really recognized was that, I had the power to learn strategies so that I would not have to take medication, or I would not have to just be dependent on another person, be it a relationship, or be it a therapist, a doctor, to make me happy. That was really my responsibility. Okay, so I definitely wanted to give a few disclaimers. I am a mental wellness coach, in addition to the initiative that, I've founded. And I am not a mental health professional. I am not a medical professional. I'm a mental wellness coach. Okay, there's a difference. I do want to say that if you are experiencing a crisis in this very moment, that I'm going to encourage you to stop watching, and I'm going to encourage you to call 911. Okay? I did want to share that this discussion, this conversation, is going to be part spiritual. You know, I definitely got a lot of my information from God, from conversations, again, from my own experiences with all three topics. And yeah, I'm going to be coming from that standpoint. And again, we're going to be coming from an empowerment standpoint. Okay, so I definitely wanted to just take a moment, actually, to meditate. Every time I do one of my Love Thyself First events, workshops, and discussions, I think it's really important to meditate, to ground yourself in order to receive, because I think that because of the perspective that I'm coming from, I need open hearts and open minds. And if you've been to one of my events before or my conferences, you know that I love the arts and I like to use the arts. And there's a reason for that. It's very intentional. I enjoy using the arts for its healing purposes. I really feel like I'm able to meet people where they are, and people are able to meet me, right? There's a relationship that needs to happen. There's a trusting space that needs to be formed. And, you know, art just has done that for me to open up to others and for others to open up to me. So I definitely want to do a very, very quick meditation. So I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to turn on this music very low. Well, hopefully not so low. Hopefully you guys can hear that. I'm going to ask you to sit back. Wherever you are, hopefully you have, you're catching this video in a time and space where you're able to just sit back. If you are sitting against a seat, or if you can sit against a wall, if you can put your spine against the back of whatever you're sitting at, the chair or the wall again, if you can put your hands on your thighs, on your knees, wherever your arms can rest, wherever your shoulders can let go. We don't realize we hold so many things right here in our shoulders. So we just want to let go. We just want to let go. Let go and let God right now in this moment, for real, y'all. And we kind of just want to sit. Okay, I'm going to raise this up a little bit. We want to inhale and we want to exhale. And we want to take time to really listen to this music. Hopefully you guys can hear it loud enough. But just sit for a moment. And you can close your eyes. You can relax your mind. So guys, when you're inhaling, I need you to inhale like you're smelling an amazing like flower, or you know, your favorite food or whatever it be. So inhale and exhale. And when you're exhaling, I need you to exhale like you're blowing out a hot cup of soup or something. Like you really want to eat that thing. You just like, you need to get cold. All right, y'all. So inhale. And exhale. We're going to take 2 more breaths. Inhale. And exhale. right here, guys, I want you to just continue to sit. And I want you to forget about what happened this morning, just a few minutes ago, yesterday or yesteryear, and take time to be present right now in the moment. Again, inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. See, when you take a really good inhale, you're bringing oxygen to your brain that helps you to become more alert, and a lot more present, a lot more aware of where you are right now. I need you to let go of what happened today. I need you to let go of what happened yesterday. And I need you to become present in what the discussion we're about to talk about. If you have a personal experience with domestic violence, this moment is for you. Inhale. I want you to inhale love. I want you to inhale positivity. I want you to inhale your future. Imagine a bright future. And I want you to exhale pain. I want you to exhale failure. I want you to exhale shame. I want you to exhale unforgiveness. It has no place in you because you're light and you're love. And your life is destined for a great purpose. Inhale. And exhale. Continue to sit here and be present. I'm going to invite you to place your hand over your heart. And I just want you to feel your heart beating against the palm of your hand. Right? I want you to feel that because that's life. And the fact that your heart is beating, that means that you still have some way to go. That means that your job is not done here yet. That means that I'm excited for you. Because if you're watching this video right now, that means there's greatness down on the inside of you. That means that you're here right on time. That means that your life is not an accident. I want you to continue to feel your heartbeat. And I want you to let go of unforgiveness, whether within yourself or for that other person who hurt you. See, sometimes as women we feel shame because of the circumstances that we may find ourselves in. And sometimes we believe it's our fault. And we'll get to that later, but violence is never your fault. Someone else choosing to use violence against you is never your fault. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale love. Exhale that resentment, that bitterness, that shame. I'm going to invite you to say perhaps words that you have not said to yourself in a very long time. It's I love you. So whatever your name is out there, I want you to continue to hold your heart. Hold your heart. God asks you to guard your heart. And say, I love you. So I'm going to say Haydee because I love me. I love you, Haydee. And so you're going to insert your name right after you say I love you. Because you're going to make this personal. I love you. I love you. See, oftentimes we're looking for other individuals to love us. We're often looking for external circumstances, people, places, and things to fulfill us. But we have these things down on the inside of us, and we do not need other people to fill us. I don't know about you out there. I don't know what your belief is, what your faith is in, but my faith is in God. And it was through loving Him that I learned how to love myself. And I was able to finally say to myself, I love you, Haydee. So inhale. We're coming to an end, guys. Inhale. And exhale. One more time. All right, guys. And only when you're ready, join me. I hope that felt amazing to you. I hope that wherever you are, even if you listen to this far, listen to the video this far, for the meditation, I hope that it has definitely served you. I'm gonna put this down. Actually, I'm sorry. I actually want to keep it a little low. So let's just jump right into domestic violence, right? Basically, domestic violence is a domestic violent relationship is any relationship where you feel oppressed, right? Where you feel like you're not growing, where you feel like you're not being valued, where you're just not becoming your best self, right? Have you ever been attached to someone and you feel like you just stopped growing? Like, what just happened? I was soaring, I was doing well, and then you became joined to someone and you feel oppressed. That's how I would define domestic violence. Of course, there's so many different types of domestic violence, and I definitely wanted to go through that. I definitely wanted to share a little bit of awareness in regards to just basic information, because I think that's just always important. I've had family members and friends, when we think about domestic violence, we just think about the physical, right? Of course, that is a form of violence, domestic violence, but that's not the only type, right? We have financial, we have emotional, we have mental, we have sexual. Am I missing one? No, I'm not missing one. And if I am, comment below if I did miss one. But there's so many other forms of abuse out there that sometimes we find ourselves in a relationship, and because we're not knowledgeable about that type of abuse, we may kind of just go along with it because there's a sense of confusion that happens down on the inside of you, that you're just like, okay, well, this doesn't quite feel good, but I'm not really sure what this is, I know it definitely took me some time to definitely acknowledge and just understand that the relationship that I did have in the past, was very abusive. I just wanted to run through these different forms. So like I mentioned, physical is, actually the punching, the hitting, the choking, the actual physical abuse from one person to another. And I wanted to add that abuse happens to men as well. We're always hearing about the ladies, which it's not that it's less important or more important or anything. It's just a fact that we need to understand as we grow and get better together, that domestic violence happens to both men and women. We'll get into this later, but sometimes a man will abuse a woman and then the woman becomes the abuser. Think about that for a minute. There's a very thin line between abuser and victim. It's a deep conversation, y'all. But before we get into all that yumminess, I wanted to just share, so physical, like we just mentioned, the most typical form of violence when we think about domestic violence. But there's also the mental, when a person is manipulative, right? So manipulative that he or she has the person question themselves, question their own values, question the way they think. And it's so subtle, it comes on so subtle. An example of that is like gaslighting. Another one is emotional abuse, right? I have here in my notes, name calling, cheating. Yes, y'all, cheating. It messes with people's self-esteem. Ignoring. Ooh, child. Ignoring someone, it's awful. It's dehumanizing. I mean, all of this is dehumanizing. But that one in particular, I've experienced myself, and it was very dehumanizing for me. The experience was very dehumanizing for me. When a person speaks to you like you're nothing, when they speak to you like you're garbage, you're trash, like they don't have a care in the world for you, it messes with your emotional development. So it becomes abusive. Financial. So when a person withholds money from you, for example, they may have the attitude of, well, you wouldn't have anything, if I didn't give it to you. So, they'll control all of the money and just kind of act like just not being fair, just being very abusive, with money. And they really, it's really a control thing with that. It's really it's like a power dynamic kind of thing. And the last one that I have on here is rape. Sexual abuse includes rape and molestation. And I know a lot of women who have experienced this as well. And I think that if we are very real, about the relationships that we've been in, we can identify some time or another where we've experienced a form of violence in our relationships, a form of dehumanization, in our relationships. I think maybe let's take a moment and think about that right now. As you're thinking, when have you ever experienced violence? Just in a way that you didn't think about it before. Like, I never thought a person withholding affection or withholding, those sorts of things that I gave so freely, would be considered violent. Violence, domestic violence. But they are. It took me, I think it takes just to take a little bit of reflection and to think about your relationships, to really start to identify the different areas where you could have experienced these things. So like I mentioned, I've experienced a few of these things in regards to domestic violence. I already shared with you a little bit about mental health. In terms of domestic violence, so as a child, I was molested. I experienced that for about 2 years, and I can really say that took some time to heal from. That took some very deep time to heal from. And even as an adult, I never looked at it as violence. I never looked at it as something that I never looked at myself as someone who has experienced domestic violence throughout my life. And when I really take a look at things, a lot of my relationships, I'm not saying a lot, but I have quite a few. Too much that I want, too many that I really wanted, more than I wanted. Anyway, I also was in it was about a 3-year relationship with a person who was emotionally abusive, financially abusive, and then eventually physically abusive. And although the physical abuse part was not, I want to say, like the horror stories, but I definitely had my body violated. And there was this is why I can identify with women who take men back after they severely beat them. Because after this violation of a physical violation of my body, I still wanted to make the relationship work. This person, apologized, cried on his knees, and just made me to think that it was an accident, right? Like, we lose control kind of thing, and I don't know, I guess I'm a forgiving person, a very forgiving person, and this person has never done anything like that to me before, but it wasn't until it got physical that I understood the cycle of emotional and financial. That's interesting. You see how those are very sneaky in there. Like, they're very, they're a little manipulative. But anyway, I took this person back, and after this person said they would never do that again. And after a few months, the person did it again. And at that point, I said, "Child, you need to go." And you need to go. And I ended that relationship and that phase that way, right? But I was able to do that because I was already empowered. I was already in a space of knowing what I deserved, and understanding what I wanted and didn't want in a relationship. You know? Knowing what you wanted and what you did not want, what was healthy, what was unhealthy in a relationship. You know, and even with the subtle things, right? It was, what do I want to say? I want to say even with the things that were very subtle, after it was all said and done, I had to question myself. I had to say, self, you know, like, you know this is not the type of relationship you wanted. Like, what's going on within you? Not that it was my fault that this person chose to treat me that way. However, I had to say, you know, what was it about me that I allowed these things to happen in my life? That I allowed myself to be ignored. Excuse me. I allowed myself to be physically abused. You know, and I had to really think about that. And when I really thought about that, I understood that I had this kind of like, I loved him, I wanted to save him. You know, I didn't have, although I was empowered, but there was a level of low self-esteem that I was still working through. You know, I was still working through that. And part of me felt like I needed him in my life. Which, you know, at the end of everything, that's not true. That's not true. Because I've learned that all you need is within yourself. Not saying that you don't want to have a relationship, you know, absolutely not. That's not the deal. That's not the case. We're interdependent, right? We need each other, actually. But you do have everything that you need within yourself to be empowered and to be happy. So I do and I did love myself, but I would say that in those moments I was not being very loving to myself and accepting those things and accepting that behavior from another person. And those were moments that really helped me to self-reflect and to really see what I had to grow through, what I have to get rid of, what I had to shut off, right? It's like an onion. You have to peel all of these layers. There's a reason why I felt like I needed this person. There was an emptiness I felt inside, right? Think about your own relationships. And when you give happiness, when you give your happiness to another person, right? Like you give them the power to make you happy or make you sad. You're giving that person that power because the reality is that there's a hole, there's hurt, there's trauma, there are things down on the inside of you that you still have to work through. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay. There is no shame. I used to be so ashamed to share that, just even that little tidbit of a story. But there is no shame, right? We're growing people, and sometimes we show up for ourselves, and sometimes we don't. And in the moments where we don't, we have to ask ourselves, you know, what happened? What happened? And be forgiving of yourself and that other person. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But being forgiving for yourself and that other person. I know you saying, well, you don't know what he did to me. You don't know what she did to me. I do know. In the sense of, I can relate and I understand the pain and the hurt, the bitterness, the anger, the frustration, the shame, oh my gosh. And the list goes on and on depending on your own unique experience. So I can relate. But like I mentioned, my faith comes from God. And if he can forgive me with all of the ish and mistakes that I make in my life, I can forgive another person. And I can walk away like a boss and live my own life. Forgiveness does not mean acceptance of accepting abuse, of accepting mediocrity in your life. You know, it's not equal to that. And you know, I think that's why a lot of people have issues with unforgiveness. And so that's actually something that I don't want you to think that I'm saying, well, just forgive and it, you know, like it'll be fine. No, it's a process. To forgive, it's a process, an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process, right? I had to remember to forgive. No, you got over that. Whenever those things, those little feelings would creep back in and I would want to get back and get even, I'd be like, listen, you don't want to do that. It'll be okay. If it's not okay right now, it would be okay. You know, I had to project my faith and just say it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Oh, okay. So we kind of jumped into kind of like what I want to discuss next. But I think the 3 takeaways from what I just shared that I want you to take away from, and I would like you to think about in your own time. You know, I was hoping for this to be a Facebook Live and to be very interactive. So moving forward, it will be. But I wrote down the 3 takeaways that I would like you guys to take away. And it's, don't judge people. People are people, and they have their own traumas, their own experiences. You know, and they get their understanding based on those things. They get their understanding based on what they've been through, the traumas that they've experienced and have not grown from. So I would say in all things, just get understanding about what that unhealthy relationship was about. Yeah. We're gonna move on. I wrote here, and I want to read it the way I wrote it, right? It says, domestic violence is a societal symptom of a mental health issue. And so like I was talking about earlier, or how I just mentioned earlier, you know, that we don't really think about how mental wellness, mental health interconnect. Like, how are they connected to domestic violence, right? And they certainly are. They certainly are. I like to look at relationships as a spectrum, just like you look at mental health as a spectrum, right? You're either on the healthy side or you're on the unhealthy side. And sometimes you find yourself in that middle ground, leaning more towards the left or leaning more towards the right. The same thing is with mental health. When you're on the mental wellness side, Sometimes you're on the mental wellness side, and sometimes you're on the mental illness side, right? See, mental health is not the illness, and people just associate it with illness. But mental health also means mental wellness as well. So when you are experiencing mental illness, whether anxiety, some common forms, anxiety, depression, PTSD, if I'm correct, is it narcissism, like those are all forms of mental illness. Like those are all forms, how do I want to say this? A person who experiences, or for example, is the abuser of a domestic violence type situation, usually is not in a good place within themselves, and they're experiencing some form of mental health issue that causes them to violate another person, right? One of the things to think about as well is when you're thinking about, and I'm always just using male and female relationships, but feel free to put in whatever gender or sex that you would like. But think about that man and what he's been through, that has prevented him from learning empathy, from respecting women, from trusting women, from not loving, and caring and being kind, and learning all of those things that are in a respectful, healthy relationships. Like something's not well. That's not wellness. So that's how I like to look at it. And it kind of helps me. And in the same token, like when you think about the women who experience abuse, who find themselves in abusive relationships, right? Like, what is the self-talk? What is the trauma? What is the, in my case, it was depression, it was low self-esteem. What was I saying to myself that I would not, hold up a second, that I would not command glory on my crown? What was I saying to myself? You know what I was saying to myself? I was saying I wasn't enough. I was saying I needed someone to complete me. That's what I was saying to myself. And I was not living in my greatness. I was not living in my wellness. So those are just things to think about. And again, I am not saying that when a person chooses to abuse you is your fault. I will never say that. I am saying that there's a level of responsibility in the fact of what we allow in our lives. And we have to be real about relationships that we find ourselves in. And it's not just, like a husband or a wife. It's not just romantic relationships. I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about, workplace environments, relationships with your children. You can experience, domestic violence with any relationship. Any relationship. Remember I said any relationship that's oppressive. Any relationship that's oppressive. And you're not growing. And I guess the last thing in regards to my 3 points is break that codependency. Break the codependency. You can live a powerful, powerful life within your relationships. And you can move beyond your circumstances. I'm going to say that again. You can live a powerful life within your relationships and move beyond your circumstances. Moving beyond what you see. Moving beyond what you feel. See, sometimes we get tripped up on feelings, but feelings are really temporary. See, when we get in those spaces, we have to understand what we know. What we know. And if we know something's not right, then we know we need to go. You know, this kind of leads us to our next point in regards to violence that we don't really talk about. And this is violence against ourselves. But what do you mean? I'm not walking around punching myself. No, you may not be walking around punching yourself, but you are walking around self-destructing yourself. You're walking around not empowering yourself. You're walking around beating yourself up spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Violence against yourself. I'm going to read off some I have it under lack of self-love. So a lot of the things that I mentioned just now, I listed them off. I wrote down 6 of them. Underneath lack of self-love, we self-destruct. We lack of emotional support and stability. So basically your low self-esteem. Lack of financial stability. When we withhold love and opportunities for our betterment. Now we know that one, right? I'm going to say that again. When we withhold love and opportunities for our betterment. When we have people who want to love us and there are opportunities that can take us places that we may want to go. We reject that. We reject that. Codependent relationships, right? Looking for that external love, external answers, attention, instead of focusing down on the inside of you within. And when we look for our value in others, again, looking for external things to kind of make us whole, when indeed we already have it. We already have all that we need down on the inside of us. So I wanted to rewind just a little bit because I wanted to define violence. Because sometimes people don't really understand when you're talking about committing self-violence, committing violence against yourself. They don't really understand, and I think that it helps to understand what I'm talking about if we just define violence, and then we can see how these things that I mentioned can fall underneath that umbrella. So 3 definitions I have here are behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something. Do violence to, basically to damage or adversely affect. The third one is strength of emotion or an unpleasant or destructive natural force. So meaning like the intensity of a feeling. which kind of reminds me of our next point of another way where we commit violence against ourselves, other than lack of self-love, is the lack of emotions, the lack of emotional control, the lack of emotional control. Have you ever felt your negative emotions so intensely that it has led you to contemplate and even attempt suicide, or even to hurt someone else? So without that control, we're really putting ourselves in not a safe space, and we're not looking out for ourselves, and we're not taking care of ourselves, and we are creating spaces that are super destructive. So again, I don't know when you're going to listen to this video, but if you can just comment below about that, because that's something that I actually would have loved to have a conversation about, that one in particular, because I think it can be seen in so many different lights, and I think that this perspective is a little bit different, and it may even be controversial, and that's okay. That's okay. It's just my thoughts. You know, I think we can definitely be violent to ourselves when we're not in control of our emotions, because we become very destructive. So the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. The most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. It is when you develop a healthy relationship within yourself that you're able to overflow in all of that yumminess and goodness that happens in that space. And you're able to love, like truly love someone else. And I don't mean love like just having an intense feeling for another person. I mean love like commit to that person, like being kind to that person, like being forgiving to that person, not self-seeking. I wanted to read off something to you, which is a definition of love that comes from the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. It's just basically a definition of love. It says, love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. It is not proud. Does not dishonor others. Not easily angered. Keeps no records of wrongs. Love rejoices in truth. That means it does not matter what it is, what the truth is. Love is going to rejoice in it. Love always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. It always pushes through. So are you ready to do that for another person? I've learned in my own relationships that until I was able to do that for myself, or even a quarter of that to myself, but trust me, you're gonna need to learn how to love when you're married, okay? You're gonna need to learn how to do that. because love perseveres. It overpowers, anything and everything that comes your way. And you definitely gonna have to need to learn to I'm gonna say that again. I'm saying it again so you understand what I'm saying, okay? You have to learn how to love yourself before you can love someone else. Before you can love someone else. Like, fall madly in love with yourself and who you are, who you want to be, your dreams, your aspirations, just everything about you. Let me tell you what I did. I remember I was going through, right after I left this relationship, the abusive relationship in particular I was sharing, I decided to do some of that onion peeling, that I was talking about, which just basically means some of the layers that needed to come off, so I don't find myself in that situation again. They say someone hurts you once, shame on them, but if they hurt you twice, shame on you, right? And so I definitely take that to heart. Right? I definitely take that to heart. So what I did, I recognized that I like to dress up. I like to have my cute earrings on, my nails did. I like to do things like that. Like, those are things for me. I don't need them, but those are things that I like to do for me. And I decided not to do any of it. Just be in the raw. Just be in the raw. And, I want to say that those moments of looking at myself in the mirror, in my quote unquote, what I thought at the moment was ugly, truly helped to do something down on the inside of me that helped me to understand and overstand that I was beautiful no matter what. No matter what was said, no matter what was done, no matter what anyone treated me like. I knew I was a queen, And when I say queen, I don't mean like, arrogantly, like I'm better than anyone. Actually, when I call a woman a queen, it's because I see God down on the inside of you. That's what that means to me, in case you don't know. And if you're not acting like a queen, I still call you a queen because I am pulling that out of you. I am speaking that into existence, into your life. So that the next time we reconnect, I see a queen. So, just in speaking about that, I also did some affirmations. I also did a lot of, what did I do? A lot of like I am statements, just a lot. All of it falls under affirmations, but they really did serve different purposes. Some of them were to remind me of who I was. Some of them were to call things into existence. Like, we don't realize language, how powerful and how important it is. Because whatever you speak out of your mouth comes right back into your life. I'm going to say that again. Whatever you speak out of your mouth is so powerful. Language is so powerful. And whatever you speak out of your mouth comes into existence in your life. You ever looked around why you're so miserable sometimes, or like, what happened? And then you have to think about what are the conversations that's been coming out of your mouth. I have to raise both my hands, because I've been there on both sides. on both sides. On living the abundant side, to, maybe there was a time where I'm just like, oh, I'm not happy. What have I been talking about? What have I been focusing on? Where has my attention and intention been? So I definitely wanted to share that, basically in regards to mental wellness. These are things that helped me become well, is all I'm trying to say. Within my story, we're weaving these things in. These are things that helped me to become well. I actually have some here that I wanted to share with you guys. These are real-time cards from I want to say a year ago, 2 years ago. This one is Know Your Worth. Know your self-worth. Self. This one is I'm a leader. I am disciplined. And let me tell you about the power of I am, right? Whatever you say after I am becomes your reality. You are pulling that into your life. See, where was it, God? I remember in the Bible when God was asking, I believe it was Moses. He asked him to get the people out of Egypt, or like free his people. And Moses, he had a stuttering problem. And he was like, well, all of these issues he brought up, and he was like, but why me? And then he was like, but who should I say, is like telling me to do this? And he said, tell him I am. And I didn't really understand that. I didn't really always understand that. Tell him I am. And after some time, it was, tell him I am. I just am. I just am. It's a state of being. Like nothing above that. It's just you are. So you calling these things into your life, into your present, like God is an on-time God. He's a present God. He was there, in the end and just moving forward, but also in the present. And how powerful is that? For you to call things into existence, into the present, and to say, I am disciplined, right? And some people say, oh, I don't want to lie, and I don't want to say this because you know what I did? I don't care. I don't care what I did earlier. I care what I do now. And if what I did now is I'm saying I am disciplined, then I'm going to behave in a disciplined manner, right? See, when I call myself to a higher level, I have no excuse but to level up. What am I going to do? Level down? No. When you call yourself to a higher level, you say, I am a queen. You start behaving to meet that queen. That's what you do. That's what you do. And in the process, because there is a process between where you are and where you want to be, don't get that twisted. There is a process. There are strategies that you can do. And one of the most powerful strategies that's been in my life in terms of my mental wellness has been affirmations and prayer. Absolutely. Affirmations and prayer, and just continuously building my relationship with God and understanding what that meant for me. What that meant for me. See, I don't think y'all understood this. I don't think I've ever told y'all this. When I initially was in a space where I became open to God, I said, I want to have a relationship with you for myself. I don't want to read the Bible. I don't want to listen to a preacher. I don't want to hear anything else other than a true experience with you. So God, if you're real, I need you to show up and show out right now in my life. That's what I said. And he sure enough showed up and showed out in my life. And I am so grateful for commanding that in my life, because I did not want to be taken advantage of. You know, like, I hear so many, like, being Christian or having a religion, I call it a relationship, but you know, other people have their names to what it is. They get such a bad rap, right? Oh, you're following the Bible, and which was man written. People don't understand God inspired writing. Like, there are certain things that you have to understand, and the way you understand it is to believe it. Like, you have to believe it to see it. It's not the other way around. See, we're so used to in our life, I gotta see it before I believe it, kind of thing, which was my attitude, right? When I asked God to show up and show out in my life. But then I understood in that relationship that we built, I understood that there was some things that I had to believe before he could show me. And I think that the Bible is just one of those things. And most people don't understand because most people are not living by faith. How's this one? You're awesome. Don't be afraid. Smile. I had to remind myself to smile, y'all. There was a time where I wasn't smiling at all. There was a time where it was hard to get out of bed. There was a time where I contemplated committing suicide. So when I tell you that the things that I'm telling you are real, okay, they're real. I had to consistently remind myself, see, I want you to see I ain't playing. I wasn't playing no games, okay? Affirmations. I am covered and blessed. I just want to hold this one up for a moment, because I think there's a woman out there who needs to hear this, that you're covered and you are blessed. You're covered. You're covered. I know it may seem like God is not there sometimes because he may seem silent, or you may be going through a hard time. But remember, I said that your circumstances do not define what you know. And so you have to know that God is there. You have to know that you are blessed. You have to know these things. And you'll see them manifest in your life. I think the last thing, or the last two things before I wrap up, I think I want to switch this around the way I have it. I just wanted to share what healthy relationships are. I'm going to make another video, but I wanted to share, I'm going to make another video on, well, actually I want to go live about this, healthy relationships, period, because we just need to have a conversation about that, right? But I found this definition and it was pretty cool. It says, healthy relationships allow people to feel supported and connected, but still feel independent. Supported and connected, but still feel independent, right? So that's on the wellness side of a relationship. And another thing to think about in regards to a healthy relationship is that you definitely need to have respectful communication, and firm boundaries, right? And you don't let no one define what healthy is for you. You define that for yourself. You define that for yourself, right? But the two common things are that you feel supported and connected, right? Feel supported and connected, and definitely independent. You don't want to be a slave to anyone. I don't want to be a slave to anyone but God. I don't want to be a slave to anyone but God. And lastly, ladies, I think what I will say, I just wanted to give you that real quick definition of, or maybe just a different perspective on how to look at healthy relationships, right? And just some components that are needed in a healthy relationship, which also includes respect, trust, understanding, things of that nature, and the things we talked about in regards to love. But in all seriousness, it's important to understand that your mind is like the most powerful tool that you have. It is your power. And when you can control your mind, you can control your circumstances. I'm going to say that again. When you can control your mind, you can control your circumstances. So your thoughts affect your feelings, and your feelings affect your actions, and your actions affect your experiences and what you manifest in this world. I'm going to say that again. Your thoughts affect your feelings. And because you may feel a certain way, you may take a certain action. And because you took that action, there are going to be some manifestations happening around you. I wanted you to understand that, because when you trickle it backwards, it goes back to your thoughts. If you do not like what you're manifesting in your life, if you do not like, what are you seeing in your reality, right? And so I learned that if you get your mind out, you can get that thing out. And that thing out meaning whatever it is that you're not happy about in your life. See, I've learned that I've had to see myself where I want to be. I've had to visualize. I've had to become laser focused, and not allow myself to be distracted. See, I wanted to share about faith, and I always get this tripped up a little bit. But faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence not yet seen. So that means that thing, that whatever you're hoping for, you need faith to bring that thing into reality. You need that belief, you need that intention, you need that focus. And we get distracted because we don't see what we want to see. And we think that because we don't yet see certain things to make us believe that we're going in the right direction, that we are actually not. And it's completely the opposite. It's really none of our business. Let me say that again. It's really none of our business how we get to the goal that we're trying to get to. That's God's business. What's your business is to stay focused, to stay in constant communication, and to remain open. Because at that point, then you can listen to instructions. And listening to instructions can save your life. listening to instructions can save your life. I'm gonna say this last thing, then I'm off this, I promise. When I decided to leave that relationship, and I think it's important, and I should have said this earlier, but when I decided to leave that relationship, I didn't just leave, right? Because honestly, I didn't know if I was safe. And most deaths that happen in regards to domestic violence happen when the women leave. This is my understanding, that most deaths happen when women leave. So that's why it's super important to have a safety exit plan. Don't forget to exit. So because something is difficult or something is dangerous, it does not mean it's impossible. And we put boundaries around ourselves because we don't see an answer. And where I didn't see an answer, God showed me an answer. He showed me an answer. He told me what to do. And I did it. I had to be obedient. And I did what I had to do. So, be obedient, y'all. So this is the end of our conversation. I hope that it has been informative, inspiring, to listen in to my story. Also, some of the information that I did share. And I just thank you so much for listening in and for watching. Have a blessed day, y'all.